Since first impressions are important, I want to get one misunderstanding out of the way here at the beginning of the video. I will not be talking about nationalism in regards to making a country independent, or ethno-nationalism in regards to a race, or the kind regarding religion. Here I want to talk about the way an individual person would have a relationship with their country and only the nation state they live in. So to give the short version, nationalism is the more extreme version of patriotism. Everyone would understand this and it's widely accepted. But to go into detail so that this can be well comprehended, I will put both ideas into perspective. By definition, patriotism is the love or devotion one has for their country. Nationalism's definition is exalting one's nation above all others and placing a primary emphasis on promotion of its culture and interests as opposed to those of other nations. The reason why I'm making this video is because in recent times, many far-right activists will proclaim themselves as patriots when in fact they go overboard with their support for the nation. They will claim that nationalism is the same thing as patriotism when in fact it is not. Anyone who expresses love for their country is a patriot. It is often based on affection and they seek alliances and friendships with other people. While also adhering to the values and customs of their own country, patriots will also feel a great aspect of responsibility for their national well-being. A good example of this is that nationalists will tend to overlook the impact on the economy in a certain situation. Their judgment will just be clouded by the desire for some type of extreme national identity. One notable moment would be in the United Kingdom, where the British government plans to spend £490 million to redesign and change the color of their passports from red to blue on the name of Britishness. Let that sink in. Instead of spending hundreds of millions of pounds on services that would actually help the people, they're going to spend it on changing the color of a document just because it seems more nation-friendly. I don't know about you, but if you ask me, helping your people is a lot more patriotic than changing the color of a booklet.
This starts with two terms, nationalism and patriotism. The foundations for both are similar at first. Nationalism and patriotism don't differ much in definition. Both involve love for a nation, customs, and foundations. The difference can arguably be simply semantics, but today one has a much better connotation in the public's mind. 100 years ago, both regions were pretty similar in their views of nationalistic displays. For Europe, nationalism had brought progress. National pride was good. This was manifested in the empires that created industrialization, medicine, and better lives than European centuries prior. Nationalism unified Germany and Italy. It was the main ideology of the age. Common culture, language, and similar values was how nations and progress was made. But Europe flew too close to the sun. This nationalistic pride, which brought progress, soon led to destruction. World War I. No amount of propaganda could help an entire generation from being disillusioned after millions died. This disillusionment created a rift in European nationalism. For the victors, old-fashioned pride in the empire took a dent, but it did lead to victory in the end, so it wasn't harmed. But for Germany and Italy, the losers of the conflict, even though Italy won, the pride of an imperial nation failed, and soon took another path, a vengeful path, manifesting into Nazism and fascism. They were nationalistic, but far different than the imperial authority of British nobility or Prussian might. World War II was the event which culturally changed Europe. After so much death and destruction on both sides, the empires were too weak to sustain themselves. Britain and France were victorious in the war, but had to move over to the new global powers. Fascism took nationalism to its most extreme. Fascism borrowed the elements of national pride for its own uses, and in return corrupted these displays, tainted them as a reminder of the Nazis or Italian fascists. The loyalty to the nation to many became reminders of those Nazis. At this time, the world was becoming divided along bigger ideologies. National borders became blurred as NATO unified itself against the Soviets. And whether you agree with it or not, this laid the groundwork which eventually became the EU.
One very important factor between the two ideologies is that people who adhere to patriotism tend to tolerate criticism of their country, while nationalists will see criticism as hateful or insulting.
And the ironic thing is the crazy double standard that these people have, all these Tea Party, tea baggers, all this nonsense, screaming and shouting and yelling, and they're just, how terrible everything is. And the ironic thing is they're the first people to get in your face whenever you say anything bad or negative about America. And it's just such a strange double standard. They'll sit there and go, this country's gone down the toilet. I can't believe what's happened to it. I mean, there's illegal immigration is out of control, and culturally we're a cesspool. There's abortion on demand, and you got San Francisco gays trying to get gay married and spread their homosexual agenda all over the country, and you got these, MTV awful rap and hip-hop, and the New York and LA Hollywood elite shoving their trash values down our throats, and it's just awful. There's a war on Christmas. There's a war on Christmas. They've declared war on Christmas. That's just awful. I'm too taxed and I'm overtaxed, and it don't matter who you elect in Washington. Those elites just thumb their nose at the regular guy. It's just awful what's happened to America. Well, there are some definite problems. We're the richest country in history, and we're ranked 37th in the world in healthcare, and second in child poverty rates, and second in child mortality rates. There's definitely some problems with that. How dare you! You can go to hell. If you don't like it, get the fuck out, okay? America's the greatest country in the history of ever anything, okay? USA! USA! Let's go back to New York, you hippie faggot. All right. Interesting.
You might be getting the impression that I'm saying patriotism is good and nationalism is bad. I think that claim has some holes, but I lean in that direction very much. As George Orwell, the famous author, said, nationalism is the enemy of peace. Nationalists believe their nation is superior to others, even to countries that have a very similar culture to theirs. They promote the idea of being proud of something they've never done and hating people they've never met. For centuries, it has been the leading cause of war throughout the world because of people willing to fight for the belief that they are superior. There will probably be people here who say, didn't you say that you don't want immigration from third world countries? And that is true. I don't want immigration from these nations, but I don't want to have cold, non-diplomatic relations. I still think that we should have trade deals, embassies, tourism, and even certain humanitarian efforts to make their lives better, which would lead to less immigration in the first place. And it would also lower the strain on illegal immigration. More importantly, I don't want to see alliances and friendships between Western countries crumble because of a belief that we are superior than each other. I personally have dual citizenship, and I am a proud Canadian who lives in Europe and works for an organization that links the West together. I am both Canadian and an Atlanticist. Those two things are part of my identity. Many nationalists might scold me for these views, as in their eyes, you're either a globalist or a nationalist. But to them I can only say that life is not black and white like the way they see it. And after a serious incident, the extreme sides of the political spectrum, including nationalism, will be the first to go.